Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is having a great day. This is episode 28 of our Python series, and today we're going to be learning about the range function in Python. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So what exactly is the range function? The range function allows us to generate a sequence of numbers. This can be especially useful when working with for loops, which we learned in the previous episode. Here you guys can see we're using the range function with our for loop. And this will give us numbers from 0 up to but not including 5. So if we run our code, our output will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's run our code and see if that actually happens. And you can see it prints out 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, why does our range function start from 0? You might be wondering why range 5 gives us 0 through 4 instead of 1 through 5. By default, range starts counting from 0, and the number that we provide as an argument or parameter to the range function tells Python where to stop. But that ending number is not included. So our output only displays numbers 0 through 4. So range 5 contains 5 numbers starting from 0 and stopping before the number 5 that we provided as an argument, as you guys can see right here. Let's see how we can give the range function a starting point. We can also tell the range function where we want to start. So suppose we wanted to print numbers from 1 to 5 inclusively. Let's see how we can do this. So we could come right here and we could provide the starting number which we want to start counting from. So we'll put 1 right there, and then that would be our first parameter to the range function. Then we can add a comma for the second parameter, which will be the stopping point of the range function. So we can add a 6, and what this will do, guys, is it will print out 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 onto the screen. Let's run our code. Let me just clear the console, then I'll run the code, and you see our output right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And notice what we did, guys. We gave the range function 2 parameters or arguments. 1 is the starting number, and 6 is the ending number. And remember, guys, the ending number is not included in the output. So suppose we wanted to print numbers from, let's say, 1 to, let's say, 10, we would have to add 1 to our maximum number, which is 10. So we could come 10 right here, and we add a plus 1. So we make the second parameter 11, as you guys can see. And now if we run our code, it will print numbers from 1 straight up to 10. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yeah, so always add a plus 1 for the ending number depending on what you're trying to do. Alright, the step parameter for our range function. So we can also provide a third argument to our range function, which is known as the step parameter. Let me just change the starting point to 0 for demonstration purposes. And let's see how we can use the step parameter. So we can come right here and we could add a comma, and then we could add a step of, let's say, 2, which is a number or integer, right? What does our step parameter do? The step parameter essentially tells Python how much to increase our number by each time, or at the end of each iteration in our loop. And the reason for this output is because we are starting from 0 and then we are stopping before 11 and increasing by 2 each time inside of our loop or at the end of each iteration. So that's why we get 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So let's go over the basic format for our range function. So the format for it is range, and then we have start, stop, and then step. So the first argument or parameter is the starting point, or where we want to start counting from. And then we have the stop, which is the stopping point or ending point that we want to stop counting exclusively. And then step is how much we want to increase by. Alright, a negative step. So the step parameter for the range function can also be negative. Let me change the arguments for this range function so I can demonstrate it to you guys. So let's make the starting point be 5, and let's let the stopping point be 0, and let's make the step be a negative 1. So what does a negative step do? A negative step allows us to count backwards. Here we start at 5, stop before 0, and decrease by 1 each time. So if we run our code, our output should be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let me just clear the console, and now we can run our code, and you see we get 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's see how we can use the range function without a for loop. Let me get rid of this for loop right here, and let's start with a simple example. So we'll say numbers equals to, let's say, range, 5, and then we can just do print numbers. Let me clear the console, and we will run our code. And guys, looking at our output right here, range 0, 5, you might notice that range doesn't simply print out a list of numbers. Instead, it creates a range object. For now, the important thing to understand about the range function is that we can use it with things like for loops to generate or work with a sequence of numbers. Let's look at some practical examples of the range function. So for our first practical example, let's simply create a program that prints out Python is awesome onto the screen, and numbers or labels the number of times it prints it out, right? So let's start with our for loop. So we can say for number, let's say in range. And do you guys remember our syntax for the range function? It is range, and then the first argument is the starting number, the second argument is the ending number, and then the third argument is the step, right? So let's provide our starting point, and let's say we wanted to print 1 to, let's say, 5 inclusively. So we can do 1, 6, and then we could do print Python is awesome, and then we can actually print out the number each time we print out Python is awesome, or label it, right? So now guys, if we run our code, you will see that it just prints out Python is awesome 5 times and also labels it, right? So essentially, our loop repeats 5 times, and it changes our number variable or the value inside of our number variable each time or at the end of each iteration of our loop. Alright, let's see our next practical example. So let's see what we could actually create. Alright, suppose we wanted to create a program, guys, that simply prints out even numbers from 2 up to, let's say, 12, right? First, let's look at our range function syntax. So we have the starting point, the ending point, and then we have the step, right? So we could come right here, and now we could provide the starting point, and let's say we start at the number 2, right? And then we could have the ending point, let's say 13 in this case. And remember, guys, the reason why we're putting 13 instead of 12 is because the range function only generates numbers exclusively. So the ending point should be a +1, which would be 13 in order to make it inclusive, right? And now we could add a step, which will be the number that will increase by each time. In this case, it will be 2, since we are only printing even numbers. And now for our print statement, we could come right here and we could say print number. And let's see what it prints out when we run our code now. You see we get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. So we printed even numbers from 2 to 12 inclusively. And that's our last practical example, guys. And how cool was that, guys? This is one of the reasons the range function is so useful with for loops. We can easily control how many times our loop runs. So let's quickly recap what we have learned. The range function allows us to generate a sequence of numbers. We can give it a starting point, an ending point or a stopping point, and a step. We also learned that the stopping number or the ending number is not included. And we have seen how range can be useful when working with for loops. And that's it for today's episode on the range function in Python. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned and I'll see you in the next episode.